Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm digging into getting content from clients, specifically wrangling the content from their hands and lighting a fire under them. Stay tuned to get lots of tips to help prevent clients from giving you copy late in the process and what to do about it if they do. Now, as designers, we must deal with managing projects. We just can't get away from it, and it can be a huge pain. Getting content from clients is definitely high on the list of complaints from designers. It can be like pulling teeth. Most clients are well-meaning people who don't have the intention of derailing a project. They simply might be wearing a lot of hats in their job, or they might have a lot going on professionally or personally. Or maybe they're just not blessed with being so organized. They also might procrastinate on writing something because, well, they're not sure what to write, or maybe they're perfectionists and don't think the copy is quite ready yet. Maybe they're new to the publishing or website world or aren't very technically savvy, so they might be unsure of what to do and when. But we as the design experts who do this work every day can guide and assist them where we can, or rather where we want to, depending on how busy we might be and how much handholding we want to or can give. I've actually been waiting on a client to send me final copy for a book for 5 years. Can you believe that? And okay, so this was before I was enforcing terms about this. I designed the book cover, it was approved, and then I was told many times that the content was being proofread and would be on its way soon. I'm still waiting. All right, let's talk about why getting content late or piecemeal is a problem first. Okay, first off, you feel like a babysitter. You're sending emails here and there, you're asking for the content, and then rinse and repeat. And it takes a lot of time to do this and to keep tracking where things are in the process. Plus, it takes a lot of mental energy. You also spend time on the project and then you go work on another project. And it's so inefficient to constantly be switching gears and going back and forth working on a project while you wait for more copy to come your way. And in fact, I have certain parts of my process that I will only do once I have all of the copy, because otherwise I would need to redo those same steps every single time they send copy. And that messes with the very process that I have in place to make jobs more profitable. Having to beg for content from clients is a mental drain, and it can put you in an awkward situation, right? Because you feel like a nag. And then you wonder how forceful you really should be, because after all, it's their project, right? They're paying you. So should you be the one telling them what to do? Well, the answer is yes, by the way, but I'll get into that in a bit. Another thing is that you'd think clients would understand that the project won't be on time anymore if they drag their feet. I mean, surely they will revise the schedule to make up for the delay. You know the saying, hurry up and wait, right? Well, unfortunately, in my 25 years in this industry, that almost never happens. Clients usually still expect you to make up for the extra time that they took and still meet the original deadline. And if you don't, then they expect the printer or someone else at the end of the process too. But at this point, now the project is a rush, and that means you should be charging more. But at this point, you're so aggravated and you're just rushing to get it done, and there's no time to renegotiate the fee and redo the contract. I mean, that took long enough the first time around. Another thing that happens when clients are late sending content, or when they send it little by little, is that they expect you to get started on the design. Sometimes you go ahead and do that, but by the time that you get the rest of the copy, the design needs to be reworked. And now it's like you're starting from scratch. That's just more of your time and profit down the drain. Okay, then there's the fact that you probably won't be able to invoice them again until you get to the next stage of the project. So they're holding you up getting paid too. It's super frustrating. And I know that babysitting is not what you signed up for when you became a graphic designer. Enough already. If you can't do your usual amazing work working under these kind of circumstances, then don't allow them to happen in the first place, or reduce the likelihood of them happening. Okay, we designers must manage the process, okay? You've got to help yourself and set yourself up for success. Making things as streamlined as possible helps us, but it also helps our clients. It's important to have processes, policies, and potential punishment in place to help prevent these scenarios. Now, I don't really mean punishment, but if it's going to make you hurt to get it done, then it needs to hurt a little on them too. Like that saying, you can have it fast, cheap, or good. Okay, so let's get into some things that I include in my estimates, proposals, and or contracts too. Okay, so you want to first explain your process. You can set expectations by explaining the process of working with you and what's expected of them. What is their responsibility in this process? So if you don't want something served, don't put it on the menu. I have a page in my proposals that details what information I need, especially if it's for a website where there is a ton of info to get, and then preferred file formats for text and images, especially if an image is for print, because I don't want low res or copyrighted images that they found on the internet. And then the number of revisions or drafts included. And then how I want to get edits. For me, for documents, that means a marked up PDF where I can see where something is in the actual layout. Not an email with request to change a word in the 5th paragraph on page 7, which is no longer the 5th paragraph on page 7 after making the edits that came before that one. And then for websites, I might want them to comment in InVision. And again, where I can see the edits as opposed to needing a map to find them before I can actually make them. And P.S., please never send a new Word file unless I ask for it. Okay, then I also include how I want to get passwords for website credentials, right? So there's the WordPress login, hosting login, domain login, and so forth. You don't want clients emailing them, and you don't want them calling with them at different times for each one of them. You can tell them how to send them via LastPass, 1Password, or another secure method. And you can put a page in your proposal or send them to a page on your website that has specific instructions. And you can do a how-to with step-by-step instructions and screenshots or videos to make it really easy. And you can explain the benefits to them, that this is going to keep the project on schedule. They're not going to get any nagging emails from you. This will keep their costs down, and this will save them time too. Okay, the other thing you can do is add a clause in your contracts that says that you expect final proofread copy. I know from experience what happens when you don't state this up front, okay? It invites draft copy, it invites piecemeal copy, and it invites that dreaded phrase, I'm going to send you this copy to get you started. Graphic designers everywhere just groaned. I know. Okay, another thing you can do is create a schedule if they did not create one already, and include that in your contract or your estimate or proposal, whatever you're sending them. And you want to make sure it has when they're going to send you copy, when you're going to send a first proof, when they have to send you feedback, and then the print date or the launch date, and any other important dates. I also have a clause that says that the client must work with me in a timely manner to make sure that we meet the deadlines. Translation, if they drop the ball, that's their responsibility. Okay, so once you've agreed upon a schedule, you can actually go and create a calendar in Google Calendar for that project with all those dates that you just created. And that way you can both get reminders about the deadlines throughout the project. You could also create an onboarding email sequence that you send to new clients for certain types of projects, right? So you can set this up in a project management system, or you could create an automation in your email service, such as MailerLite or MailChimp. And then you could also just create a form on your website or a Google form or something and send clients to that to fill out and submit that information to you. Now, if you do different types of work, like you do print and you also do web, you could have one form that has conditional fields based on the type of work. So you have some fields that are for print design projects, and then you have some additional ones for websites where you ask for, login credentials for the website, the hosting, the domain name, etc. This saves you time, so you don't have to repeat the same thing over and over again to every client. You can just send the email out yourself or through the automation and include the link to the form. Now, you might be saying, this is a lot of hoop jumping for clients. But really, what this says to clients is that you're a professional, you do this all the time, and you know what's involved. Okay, but this also saves you time because you can set it up once and then you just send it to clients each time and you don't have to recreate the process every single time. But it also saves them time because they can set aside some time to get all this information together and then send it to you. Now, something else you could do that can work really well, and this would be instead of a rush fee or penalty for late content. Although you could do that too, but you could use a tiered pricing structure. They're all kind of all the same in that clients are going to pay more for rush or late content, right? Except that with tiered pricing, it can feel more like an incentive to get the copy finished on time rather than trying to avoid a penalty. Now, what I mean by tiered pricing is that you flat out tell them that the price is going to be this amount, the least, when it's delivered by this date, and then it's going to be this price, which is more, when delivered by this date, which is a later date. And then it's going to be this price, which is the most, when delivered by this date. Okay, so you want to make sure you specify the amounts and the dates. Now, remember when I said it might hurt to get it done? Well, you don't necessarily want to put yourself in a position, especially with a huge job, where you're so adamant on waiting to work until you get all final proofread copy at one time that you end up boxing yourself into a corner. So you can still accommodate their needs while getting the job done efficiently. So for example, I had a client for years who had a huge publication who could only start working on certain parts of the copy at a certain time of year. They couldn't do it any sooner. Some of it had to happen after a specific event happened. And it would not have been smart of me to require that they wait and send me all of their final proofread copy all at once when it was ready, because that would have left me with an impossible task of laying out and making accessible a document with 400 pages and hundreds of images, hundreds of tables, and charts to address. That would not have set me up for success, and they had a legal requirement to meet a specific deadline. So what I did was I accommodated that schedule, and some of it was rushed, by charging them the one rate for sections of copy sent by one date, a higher rate based on sections of copy sent by a later date, and then a very high rate for the sections of copy they sent in last. So I was able to start on the sections as soon as they were ready, and there was less that I had to rush to do. But still, they sent me big sections at a time. Some of it was a rush still, but I was able to mitigate that and get paid more for that. You can also charge what's called a restart fee, and that could be something that goes into effect when a client goes AWOL for X number of months, 6 months, a year, whatever. A restart fee could be a flat amount, or it could be a certain percentage of the project fee. When the project gets dragged out over many months or a year, you have to keep going back in, and you got to remind yourself of the scope and what content you have or what you don't have. And then you have to go in search of it. This adds so much time to the admin side of the project. So clients will actually pay less if they keep it on track, and they'll pay a penalty if things go sideways. Again, it's incentive for them to stay on schedule. Now, another thing to think about is when you base payments on milestones. You want to be careful with this, because when you base payments on certain milestones and then they don't happen because of a client delay, that means your invoicing will be delayed too. Or you'll need to have a potentially uncomfortable conversation with the client about the work that's been done so far and why you need to be paid. So you can instead base them on milestones that you have more control over. Okay, another method is to designate time to work together. This not only keeps the project on schedule, but also holds the client accountable, and it gives them any hand-holding that they might need and gets you paid in record time. Some people call this VIP days. I learned about this recently, actually, from my mind-blowing chat with Sarah Massey, who completely transformed her business on this concept. And she teaches other designers an entire process for how to do this. So what happens is you and the client schedule a time in advance to work on the project. And it could be a day, it could be 2 or more days, but usually 1 or 2. And they have to prepare in advance to get whatever is needed for that day. And then they have to be available and waiting in case you have any questions, in case you need any additional information, or in case you have trouble logging into the website, or to approve things. And then in the meantime, you work on the project and then send them a proof, and they're expected to turn it around right away. And if they drag their feet, then the job doesn't get done, but you're still getting paid. Okay, so the bottom line is they get the work done faster as long as they don't hold it up, and you get paid immediately. So it's a win-win for both parties. Now, if your client's going to be writing their own copy, but they find it hard to get started, which does happen, you could offer them a brainstorming session. Paid, of course. So you could meet with them and ask them questions about their service or product, okay, the benefits, how it's different from competitors, etc. And then if you offer copywriting as a service, you could then take the information that you get from that session and write the copy for them. Another thing you can do is use a project management tool to collect the content or potentially ping a client when something is approaching the due date. You could also use a Google Doc or Asana, I like Asana, to create a simple checklist of what needs to be done. And I'm telling you, there is something very satisfying about crossing something off in a checklist. And it's different from just deleting it from the list, but there's something about still seeing it there on the list, but crossed off. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. You could also use a tool such as Content Snare to collect content. I have so many colleagues who swear by Content Snare, especially for website projects. Now, if you have a client who is technically challenged and they're not using the same tools that we use every day, then it can expedite the process to have them send content by setting up a Google Drive or a Dropbox folder and then just sending them the link to it and telling them exactly how to upload to that folder. Okay, so there you have them. My tips for getting content more easily from clients so that you can get the job done on time, make sure it's profitable, and doesn't get hit with that babysitting tax, and then you get paid sooner. If this content was helpful to you, please like, share, and subscribe. That will really help me reach more graphic designers. Support the podcast by buying me a coffee. It might actually end up being a glass of wine or some tea, but you could go to buymeacoffee.com/creativeboost.